Welcome to the Ranger's Respite. I'm Philip. Today we're taking a look at a whiskey from a distillery that is in bout 6 of round 2 of the Virginia Whiskey Tournament, which you can vote for now. Links are in the description down below. But before I go talk about this whiskey, I want to plug my own stuff real quick because doing this as a hobby isn't cheap, and I would love your support. So if you like my videos, if you like the Virginia Whiskey Tournament, if you like my reviews, such as this one, please consider purchasing a pen, such as this one, turned from a Jim Beam barrel stave, or a bowl, such as this one, turned from American Cherry. From my Etsy shop, there's a link in the description down below. Now, moving on. Today, I'm looking at the Virginia Distillery Company's new Port Cask Reserve, part of their VDC, their entry-level American single malt line. It's priced at $45.99. Yes. It's sort of an entry to American single malt, and I have to state, per FTC guidelines, this bottle was provided to me by the fine folks at the Virginia Distillery Company for the purposes of review. That said, you know me, they know me. My review will be honest. I will talk about the good points, the bad points, anything in between, because I am responsible to you at the end of the day. Not to any brand that gives me anything, but, to you, to my viewers, to the people that might be looking for a good, honest review of the products that I have. So, let's talk about it for a moment. This is 100% malted barley. This is meant to replace the old BHW product from the entry level line. This is a blend of malt whiskeys from Scotland and malt whiskeys distilled at their Livingston facility in Virginia. Now, they have moved on to 100% American single malt. That is 100% barley, malted, fermented, distilled, aged, finished, and bottled here in Virginia, which is an exciting step because that places this bottle as one of the best priced entry single malts, and definitely one of the best priced single malts being produced in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It is similar price wise to the Copper Fox standard smoky single malt. And it costs a little bit more than like Stranahan's, but that's not a Virginia single malt. Now, it is part of a larger lineup that includes a cider cask finish and a Cabernet cask. I do have those, but I won't be reviewing them right at the moment. During the Virginia Whiskey Tournament, I'm of course trying to get through as many distilleries in each bracket as I can. So, let's take a closer look at the Port Cask Reserve. On the nose, it's very heavy on that port influence. This is, of course, a mix of port barrels and port-style wine barrels. It is previously aged in ex-bourbon barrels. It's a little bit aggressive on the nose in terms of all of that port influence, the like very dry raisin, sort of oak tannins, and the very distinct from oak tannins, tanniny, dry, bittersweet note of grape skin and stems and such, and a slight almost brandy-like note, all wrapped around a very classic solid malt base. And there's some like stone fruit apricot in there as well. I'd also like to say, look at that color. That is a nice ruby, sort of, just a hair past copper colored, wonderful color. Let's take a look at the palate. Surprisingly dry on the palate. When you're talking about port finishes, they seem to come in in two basic varieties: the oversweet and the over dry, and you're aiming for something right down the middle. And it's a harder line to manage than you would think. This has a very good balance of the slight, light, toasty, fruity, bright, slightly sweeter notes that you can get out of a port, as well as the tannic grape skin and woodiness that you also often get from these port barrels. The fairly neutral ex-bourbon cask single malt does a good job of providing a little bit of vanilla, some gentle, like malty, bready notes, and a little bit of like honey. And I think that's probably where the stone fruit notes are coming from, is that malt. Coming back to the nose, the base malt shows through a little bit more like honeyed apricot note, as well as that like nice rich raisin color. This is a beautiful after dinner dram. A very good digestive. This would go well with your dessert. It would pair well with something slightly sweeter to bring out those dark, rich flavors within the whiskey, and the light notes that you might be looking for in your dessert. Sorry, I cannot speak apparently. Long day. Wonderful stuff. The finish, I think, is where it sort of lets me down a little bit. I really hope for like a long, lingering, bittersweet, raisiny finish, and what I get is more like barrel and tannic and grape skin tannic notes that sort of linger and cling to the back of the tongue and in the throat, and give you sort of a drier, less balanced in that aspect. It is still very good. Still a wonderful pairing for a sweet dessert. There's a slight citrus note that pops out sort of around the edges of the palate, like a pithy orange peel. Wonderful, but unexpected. It sort of develops late in the taste, and sort of it leads into the grape skin and barrel bitter finish. Now, those of you who are familiar with my show will know that I do not give numeric scores. I find them to be less useful than a lot of people would have you believe. I instead prefer to ask and then answer 3 questions. Do I like it? Do I think it's a good value? And do I recommend it? Let's start with, do I like it? Absolutely. Even with the slight shortcomings of the finish not really being what I had hoped for, and it being just a little bit drying in the mouth, I have to say that it is an excellent port finished option. It showcases both the base malt and the the offerings of the port barrels very well. And I think that it does so in a nice, balanced manner. Do I think it's a good value? Absolutely. There are few single malt offerings, a few American single malt offerings in this price range with the sort of finish that you get from the VDC Port Cask Reserve. I think that it is not quite unique, but very close to unique in how it manages to position itself in the market as a good example of what American single malt can do and what it can pull from finishing barrels. That said, we still have that third question. Do I recommend it? Excuse me. Absolutely. A little bit of a hiccup. Shouldn't have eaten my dinner so fast. Absolutely. Again, if you are looking to try an American single malt, if you are looking to expand your horizons whiskey-wise, that is a good place to start because you have the nice, subtle bourbon notes that you get from that you can sort of trace from the ex-bourbon barrels. They're a little bit compact and they're buried in there, but it is a good, like, if you're going from bourbon to finished bourbon to American single malt, my basic recommendation is to start with something like Ragged Branch, move to Isaac Bowman, and then this is the next stop along the way in your whiskey journey. It is, frankly, one of my favorite American single malts on the market right now, and it is one of the most widely available of my favorite American single malts. And thus, I must recommend it. So, all that out of the way. If you want to see the Virginia Distillery Company make it on to round 3 of the 2024 Virginia Whiskey Tournament, give them a vote. Links are in the description down below. You can vote on Instagram or on Twitter or both. And there will also be a link to vote for vote in bout 5, which is Blue Shepherd Spirits against Hilltop Distillery. I think that covers that. So, if you want to support the show and support the Single Malt Frontier, my Etsy shop is linked in the description down below. Remember to vote in the 2024 Virginia Whiskey Tournament. It is ongoing. It is a bracket style competition, and you vote who moves forward and who gets left behind. With all that said, stay happy, stay geeks, slancha.